Right. Thank you for joining us, Humayun. Thank you for joining us for first in a series of various interviews that we'll be doing with yourself and hopefully other Alliance members. Obviously, with yourself being the chairman of the ASI Alliance, it's your position to answer a lot of the questions that we want to position to you about what's been going on lately. So, just to begin with, and what's gone on, what's the thinking behind these mergers, as we've recently seen a failed merge attempt, and I'll let you elaborate on the phrasing of failed. But what was the idea behind it, and what happened?
Yeah, so thank you. And I think this is really an opportunity for me to kind of really address the community directly. And so I'm quite happy to be here. And I'm hoping that this will give clarity to the community for a lot of things which I've heard, which I've seen people don't understand. So let's kind of, before we get to the current merger attempt, let's get behind and let's get kind of roll back some timeline. So we put in together three uh, kind of mature projects, which was Fetch AI, Singularity, and Ocean. What was the reasoning and what was the thought behind it? So if you look at what's happening in the Web3 space, and I'm going to park the bull run, the hype, the talk about going to the moon and all of that aside, but let's look at it very uh, logically and look at what's been happening. What's been happening is crypto market was stalling. It is stalling still. I think, in my opinion, the use cases are missing. The utility, the true utility of things are missing. We have we have BTC, we have Ethereum, which has true utility. We have the DeFi space, but anything after that, which we keep trying to throw around and keep testing, has been struggling. AI is a technology which I believed, along with all the ASI Alliance members, is really got the opportunity to actually change that. You can actually bring true utility to Web3 using AI. So what we did was we looked at three projects who were mature. The teams were good. We felt that we had a very complementary communities. We had complementary technologies. What the thought process behind that was two-pronged. One, we actually create this tech stack which people can use, but also what is quite interesting and what is quite important is you have two sides. You have a supply side and you have a demand side. Yeah. So you need to build those two sides if you want traction or utility, true utility. What's if you look around in the whole crypto space, what you'll see is uh, one project will tend to build a component of this and would probably, if successful, would get both supply side and demand side. But if not successful, they will sit on either supply side or demand side, and they would struggle to kind of put the two together. So the premise behind mergers is in this. I mean, the Web3 tokenomic merger and the tech merger is to actually not have the conventional merge problems, bringing the team together too closely, kind of getting the finances together too closely. So leave that aside, just build the ecosystem. So if you now think about it, you have three ecosystems, even if they were equal, some was more, some was less, and they were complementary. They were not overlapping too much. I mean, if you look at the first three merge entities, our overlap was around 6%. So 6% of people held, for example, FET token, Ocean token, AGIX token, or one or the other. So only 6%. So now, if you think about it, if you think about the token holders now holding, let's say, the ASI token, which is the FET token, that's trebled in the first instance. So now all the token holders, so now you've just kind of added and built this huge community. Now, what with community comes interaction, with community comes either supply side or demand side. In this case, let's just say we have a community. So it depends in tokenomics terms, community is valuable, right? So what we've just done is we've actually added those three communities. Now, what does that actually mean? So if you think about how many projects have these big communities, they're limited in number, right? So you kind of start from that point and you put these communities together. Then you look at the tech stack. You have multiple various tech stacks and you have multiple tokens. So if you want to use one or the other, you have to kind of integrate with each other. You have to go through the bridges, which is a risk, which is all of that. What we are looking at is building a tech stack which actually is loosely integrated, so it actually runs together. So you have a customer who wants to build a solution, it can use the whole tech stack. AI doesn't just work on data. AI doesn't just work on models. AI works on doesn't just work on user interface. It works on all those things. So how do you go about in Web3 space and actually do a kind of a combined joint integration? It makes it very, very difficult. So you actually put all these technologies together, and that was really the premise of this whole merger, which we initiated, and that went well, right? So we got all those three. But what we didn't have is, if I just kind of give you an overview, we had the data layer, we had the algorithms, which was so that the data was Ocean, Singularity was the algorithms, and the application layer was Fetch AI, which is the agentic network. I'll keep them light, where we can, when we have our next interviews, we can go more deeper into the products. So we had those, but what is a very important thing here is also compute, right? So without compute, as you have seen, all these large LLMs, they all need compute. Or everybody's talking about GPUs, they need compute. Now you try and integrate that compute into the stack with other providers of that. It's a complexity. It's a value which sits outside our ecosystem. So what we did was I mean, kudos, and we kind of got together. We've been looking at what is around and seeing how kind of an undervalued supplier. It's a supply provider. Kudo is like a supply provider of compute. What it enables you to do is build a layer where you can actually distribute compute to all the GPUs and compute providers. So I mean, after discussions, after meetings, it became very clear there was a very complementary reason to actually add them to this whole thing. Now, I just want to kind of touch on that. If you look at pre-merger revenue, pre-merger utilization of their network, pre-merger actually valuation, it's like they were valued. FDV was around 80 something million, right? So now, if you look at the current numbers, which Kudo I think published a few days ago, you have a 470% increase in revenue. You have 200% increase in utilization of their networks. So the reason for that is because when you add this to these communities, the utilization, and actually look at the ecosystem projects which will use that same product, you just trebled it, you quadrupled it, which they didn't have that reach. So an equivalent, if you look at those numbers in equivalent terms, kudos compared to its industry kind of competition is valued at 80 million, and some of them are valued at 2, 3, 4, and 5 billion. Now, if you look at the comparison, what you've done is you've taken an 80 million value, you merged it in here, and actually unlocked $2 to $3 billion worth of value. So it makes sense to do it because that value, I mean, it might not have flown into the ecosystem right now, but it will flow into the ecosystem because token value depends on community, it depends on utilization, token velocity, and really the ecosystem. Who is going to be the supplier? Who's going to be the consumer of it, right? So the revenue has to flow through. So now, since the Kudos merger, the revenue through our network, which is the ASI network, has doubled. Our validators has gone up by 25-30%. The value sitting in staking contract has gone up by 250 million, 300 million. So you can see value is flowing. What it's not doing at the moment is not actually translating it into the token price increase, right? So
That was going to
how?
be my next question to you. Just yeah, sorry, hey, just
Yeah.
to say with the brand value and the tech value that you're building within the tech stack, and how does that bleed into the token for the community to feel? How can you get it for us to feel like it's tangible value?
Yes. So I think that's. But as you can imagine, this is not a small task. Nobody's done it. Nobody understands the dynamics of it. We're doing it first time. It's it's not as fast a process as minting a meme coin and sending it to Moon. So this is true value that we're trying to bring, and that true value will just take slightly longer to come in. But let me explain how this will actually flow into this. So the way it will flow into it is um, the revenue will increase. The revenue increase means the token velocity will increase. The token velocity increase will actually talk about utilization of the token will increase. Um, and ultimately, what that would enable you to do is there is going to be an earning, which is just like if you think about a company, a share, you have earnings per share. What in this case it's a utility token, so you won't see that earnings per share. But that's the method we have introduced now, which is, I mean, there was no point doing it previously because the earnings we hadn't proven the earnings to come in. So the method is going to, which we're introducing is called earn and burn. So there's no point just going and burning some token and expecting the value to go up. And you can do all these, little tricks, and we've all seen them. But the true earn and burn would mean that you earn the value, and then you translate that value to the token holders by burning it. So really the same. I think Binance did that quite well with BNB, and it's you have to earn it first before you start burning things. So that's the process we're introducing, but we can talk about it a bit more. But I think coming back to your question, so hopefully I've explained to you what the philosophy of the merge is, why we feel it's going to bring value to the token holders, and then now let's look at what happened recently, which was the PAL merger. And that merger, I mean, we say PAL merger because that's how community looks at it, but it was a proposal for a merger. Now, this is a Web3 space, and one thing we are committed to as an ASI council is to bring any project which we feel fits with the community, fits with the tech stack, fits with the ethos that we're trying to bring, and the components of what we're putting together, which we discussed that. So the tech stack plus the supply side plus the demand side, you build the whole ecosystem. So you're not relying on people to just come and use it. You're actually adding the mass. So people actually, you have a customer, you have a supplier. So when the customer comes, you don't have the supply, then what do? If you have huge amounts of supply, but you have no customer, what do? So you have to think of it as a whole system. And true value is going to only come when we actually become serious about this and not do just basic, let's pump the token price to the moon and that's it, we move on to the next one. What we're trying to do here is actually build this uh, ecosystem with revenue models and with an architecture which kind of grows as you progress through utility. That's really the point. So PAL merger, we get plenty of projects approach us, especially when it's not bull run, because you can imagine in bull run every token is $1 billion+ token. Everybody's expecting it to be to the moon. It's going to go 2,000%. We can't do that because we are running a real project with real utility, and we have a token which is not going to do 1,000x in 2 minutes. But we have to build value slowly. I'm not saying it can't do it, but I'm just saying it needs to build up to anything meaningful. and we are making huge progress on that. So PAL merger, the team came, we spoke, we felt, we did some due diligence, they did some due diligence, we felt the communities were complementary. So our community was quite different to their community, so it would add value. And their product was very much facing the customer in Web3. So they had these agents in Telegram channels, which had a very interesting, interaction with them. I mean, there's plenty of bots coming, but we felt they'd already understood the requirement. They were already out there. It would add a good entry point to bring the actual utility into the ASI ecosystem. Right. So that was the premise, and we, of course, because it's a decentralized Web3 merger, and we made it, we have to take the proposal and give it to the communities and to say, okay, do the communities want it or do they not want it? So here's when it started the FUD, which is, oh, they've already agreed the merger. The merger is happening. It's going to dilute us. We're going to go down the drain. No, this was a proposal. It's our responsibility to bring the proposal to the community for them either to start voting on, even just by saying, no, we don't want it, which is what happened. So I actually see this as a positive. Perhaps there's too many death threats which come along, but if you park those, it's a good process, because the process is, you communities tell us if you want this or you don't want this. It's a proposal. We didn't even get to a tokenized voting. We just put it there so that we can open up a discussion. But of course, that discussion was not taken in the way that it was meant to be, which was, here's the proposal, now let's discuss, and then we will vote. So people felt that there was no discussion. Well, that was really meant for the discussion. So that's
so what had happened was effectively evident of active discussion, if you know what I mean. So it was a case of a merge opportunity was on the table that both parties thought this is a wise fit, and you thought, okay, let's put it out to the community. So it wasn't a case of we're doing this, we just want validation. It was a case of, hey, we think this is okay. What do you guys? What does the community think? And the community went no, and you went, okay, that's fine. That's all we needed. That's effectively it didn't. Yeah. So it wasn't a merge failure. It was a proposal that was agreed by the community they didn't want, and then so ASI didn't do.
So we have two stages. So one stage is we put it to the community in a social media. We discuss. We let community talk about it. What does the community see the problems are? What does the community see the benefits are? There's obviously going to be people who are pro, and you can try and convince them. Both projects either come in and say, yes, this is why we're looking to do it, and we can answer all your questions. So let's open that discussion. And then from there on, you go to the next stage, which is the voting stage. If we had seen very close match, or yes, and the other side is no, and it was very close, we would have gone to voting. But there was no point going to voting because it was predominantly a no, because the community didn't feel that it will unlock the value that they are expecting in a bull market for the token to perform. But that doesn't mean there was no value actually to create by the two kind of projects and multiple projects coming together. It was more, I think, a knee-jerk reaction, which was, they've already decided it. They're going to merge it. They're going to do something bad to us, which wasn't the case. And the proof is that it wasn't the case because it didn't go through.
Well, another kind of question just off the back of that I do see, the community are asking is that why merge? Why do we want to merge someone else into our token as opposed to partnership? What's the pros and cons? Why is a merge more advantageous than just a normal partnership that everyone's used to seeing? Where there's no dilution or scene of dilution. Why merge?
Well, let's. I mean, this is no criticism, or this is no pointing fingers to anyone. This is just my general opinion. It's my opinion. Um, when you just talk about partnerships, they are very meaningless kind of partnerships. They're just announcements. 90% of them are just announcements. It's okay to do one. That's fine. We did actually do a partnership with PAL a year ago as FET Fetch, when we were Fetch before the alliance. This was, and we actually worked on it, and they actually built the agents and they put them on Agentverse on our agent exchange. We did do all of that already. That's why there was a trigger to do more. But what you realize is that, so what's the objective of the projects? The projects want to build their ecosystem. They want to build their product. So they're not interested in, kind of, for a short period, you can have a burst of interest to create and announce the partnership and build something small to actually showcase it. But if you really want to do it, and this is why one of the reasons why these partnerships in Web3 are very weak, is because the objectives are never aligned that well. So you kind of want to build agents yourself, Fetch wants to build your agents yourself, and we want to go into competing with each other. So what would happen is generally the partnership is not necessary because Fetch has an agent framework. We just don't have the customer base, which PAL had the customer base, but our technology was stronger in terms of what we have in the backend. I mean, of course, they can build the technology, and we can also go in and compete with them in building these agents. But rather than do that, what we felt was more interesting was to bring the communities together and do a more deeper and more meaningful partnership where we don't have to keep exchanging tokens between the products. So I mean, the agent uses PAL token, the PAL token that gets converted into FET token, the FET token gets converted into some other token. Rather than having those, I mean, it's not efficient. If you're building a product, it's inefficient. So the deeper, call it partnership, but the deeper merge in terms of token makes sense. It also brings all the communities. So now, if you think about it, if the biggest community is, let's say, 10 million people, and we are at 2-3 million people, and PAL brings another million, you now just added complementary community to the whole thing, and which means that your marketplace is just increased exponentially as well for them. So the project which is merging, they now just gain another 3 million people to sell to.
So
So
obviously it widens the exposure to obviously the projects and the token. It keeps things instead of moving between exchanging between tokens and then accruing sort of gas fees and other and time. But obviously by bringing more people in, more audience, more community in, it within a merge, isn't there a risk of value dilution, like or token dilution within bringing more in?
well, that's a great question, because that's a question I think community has been asking constantly. But let's just do a thought experiment here. I mean, you have 10 glasses, you have one jug of water, you distribute the jug of water to 10 glasses. You now add 10 other glasses, you still have the same jug of water, you distribute it to 20 people, you have done value dilution. Understood. But if you have 10 glasses of water, you have two jugs instead of one. The next jug gets distributed to the next 10. That does not have that value dilution. You don't actually dilute value, because what you've done is you brought in some new community. You're only adding tokens of the new project to distribute to that community. Just a name change, effectively, because you've minted those tokens which are equivalent in value to what they already hold, and that value does not dilute anyone. But ultimately, what should happen is, because of the exponential increase in the reach of the project, the actual combined value should start to increase exponentially. So that's really the concept behind it. But initially you'd think, oh, you've just minted more tokens, and but we've just added X number of people who didn't own that token. They didn't hold that token. So your community has gone. I mean, the law of communities. If you think about it, as the communities grow, the value of those communities start to showcase in the token. So ultimately, what would happen is, as you grow the community exponentially, your token value increases exponentially. So there's no actual dilution; it's a perceived dilution.
So would that be the same as so let's just say when when you merge a project, merge your tokens, yes, to us it looks like there is more tokens in circulation, but what we're saying here is the funding to maintain a market cap to create an equivalent price is also provided. So actually there's no value dilution within it. Much like within history, when you looked at countries merging into the euro, so to think, would that be a good example, sort of thing? So like if you had, I think it was it francs within France, you know, you would, yes, 10 francs wouldn't be 10 euro, but if you had sort of excellent, the value that was in your bank would be the same value that would be once converted to euro. Is that what you're saying? Even though there was multiple parties coming into it, there was no, you didn't ever, for every country that joined, you didn't have dilution, sort of thing. Is it quite a similar?
But in this case, what is quite interesting is that because it's a technology based solution, the value of technology increases exponentially as you get utilization, as you get better technology into it. So, if you think about what projects there are at the moment, and I think I gave you an example of Kudo. There is also example of some agent based systems, but let's just take Kudo because that was the first merge which went successful. If you think about what Kudo is, it's a decentralized compute platform, right? And I think if you look around, you have 3 or 4, 5 more other uh, platforms of similar ilk. So, and if you now start comparing the number of GPUs, number of revenue coming into the system, and if you compare all of them, uh, the other projects might have valuations of 2 to 3 to 4 billion. Now, where do you think that value has gone? It's not disappeared. You've now got a project which is doing twice as much in the revenue, twice as much in GPU compute supply, twice as much in utilization. So ultimately, the market will see the value flow back into the token. So let's say if I merged a we merged a project worth 80 million or 100 million into a 2 billion market cap ASI. And if that true value of that 80 million is a billion, then that billion ultimately will flow back into the token holders because you've got value creation rather than value dilution.
Yeah, and this value goes to all token holders, not just a compartment of. Yeah, but just to go sort of touching onto that value and revenue with the ASI Alliance, with your sort of product development that we've seen recently, what are your primary revenue streams for the alliance? That will bring those inflows in, and we've discussed kind of like brand value and all that, but this is like from a revenue value, contract value standpoint. How is the ASI making money?
Yeah. So let's look at what we are building and then look at what we already have and what is coming very soon. So what do we already have? So we have a network which is a Cosmos based network, which is ASI network that has I think uh, around 100 validators, roughly 93, 94 validators. I don't know the exact number, but there's validators. We have a staked amount of roughly 500 million approximately, which is sitting there. Now, even if I just look around and compare with all the other Cosmos-based ecosystems, I mean that network just alone has some value, right? So that's one kind of value, and it generates fees for transactions. It generates fees for staking. Then you have deployments of smart contracts on it, which I'll come back to in a minute. But they're AI based, agent based, AI based, machine learning based. So we'll come back to that. So you have this network, So now let's go back to what we're actually trying to build here. What we're trying to build here is a tech stack which actually brings people to use it, from the people who are actually going to be the consumers of this tech stack, and the people who are going to be supplying uh, real world assets. It will be supplying the deep in assets. It will supply the machine learning models. It will supply the intellectual resource into it. So that's on the side. But let me go through it again. So you have, let's say, a large language model, right? Large language model on its own has a huge value. So when people train, like there's several projects with several valuations. If you have a large language model which is trained, which people can start using, I mean, generally they're starting from a valuation, although they are starting to become commoditized. I mean, starting valuation is a couple of billion, right? A decent large language trained model. Why? Because when people start using it, and that's the key, that's what OpenAI did quite well. Utility of it became the value of it. So if you bring in, if you look at, let's say, OpenAI, they have a large language model, which they didn't just have a large language model, because if they had it on a computer hidden away, nobody using it, there's no value. What they have is a compute infrastructure underneath it, because they could train this huge language model underneath it. So you need that compute resource. So in our case, if you think about it, Kudos provides the compute resource, or a platform to provide the compute resource on which to train these machine learning models. So large language models have value. So that's, and they generate revenue. Okay, so that's the revenue generator in this case. How do you use these models? You need a way to use these models. The way to use these models is the agent network, because the way we're going to move forward is not going to be websites, it's going to be agents, it's going to be agentic networks. You're going to communicate with your agent, who will capture your intent, and it will execute based on that. But it can't just do that on its own. It needs the whole infrastructure to do it. It needs to go down. It needs to use the machine learning model to tell you what the intent is. The machine learning model needs the compute to kind of give you that insight, and that goes back to the agent, which then decides what to do, and then it has to go out either to the community to respond, or it will have to go out to the supplier to do something. So you need the whole infrastructure to actually unlock the true value. If you do just small components, it's quite a lot of work to bring all of it together, especially in the decentralized space. So hopefully I tried to explain it, but please just come in with any questions if it's not clear.
I was just thinking that, very recently we've seen quite a lot of news, a lot of information about ASI Create, which is one of your sort of products that has been working towards and recently been announced at the SNEC, the ecosystem conference at DevCon. Ben Goertzel recently mentioned about ASI Learn, and then very recently we've seen within our content there's references of ASI Train, which has been kind of recently, which is soon to be properly announced. But how do these align with your long-term sustainability goals that we're just kind of touching on with revenue and product?
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. We'll go deeper into this in our next kind of iterations of this kind of discussion, but let me start right from the basics. The Create is the more consumer customer facing product. But before I get into the detail, as we discussed, what are we trying to build? We're trying to build a way where we can build machine learning models. ASI is a AI initiative, right? So everything we do needs to bring AI to life, AI to commercialization, keeping a long-term view of AGI. We need to go there. We need to have the resource to actually train AI machine learning models. We have to have interfaces to actually go out and actually bring utility into the system. So all these things is what we are kind of working with. So it's not a small task that we have taken on, but it's a task which I think is worth taking on. So let me start from create. So what create is, it enables you to build applications which are going to be the new wave of applications, which is going to use agents, which is going to use underneath agent technology, the network of agents, to execute tasks, to carry out things, to make payments, to receive payments, to actually do a booking on travel or find something that you're looking for. So it kind of covers the search, but just by having like fetch agents doesn't solve the problem. Because why? Because you need to go a little bit underneath. You need to have the cognitive layer. You need to understand what the objective is. You need to actually then orchestrate the task. So you need knowledge graph to actually do the search and discovery in the right way. You then need to go underneath another step where you're actually going to actually build these machine learning models for reasoning, which bring the singularity kind of adds to it. And underneath that, all of that doesn't happen unless you have data. So you have to bring data. So Ocean brings the data. None of this works unless you have compute, because you have to train with the data to then generate those inferences, which then get used into the agents. So now that's the whole stack. So we've kind of broken it down where create is where users can build applications, where developers can build applications using all the technology that is underneath, without going into the technicality of it. So you can just say, okay, I want to use this, I want to deploy the graph, I want to deploy this agent, I want to host this agent, and I'm going to run it. That's create. So you're creating applications, you're creating value, you're actually bringing different use cases into this. Because you're a developer, you're going to create it, and then on top of that you can actually fund it, because you want to try it, because that's the objective, right? So now you have the tech stack. Don't worry about the tech stack. You can get everything you need to build it here, and then you can actually even raise money against it. Now, it could be Web3 funding, it could be just grant funding, it could be Web2 funding. I mean, it doesn't matter, but you do need funding to commercialize something, right? So that's where we kind of going with create. In terms of learn, you have, okay, you have this reinforcement learning loop. Why? Because your applications are going to bring some data in, because you're now capturing the whole stack. So when somebody builds an application, the data it generates needs to go, and you need to learn back from it. So that's what you're kind of bringing into learn, agent to agent learning, reinforcement learning. So you kind of all those different elements which can do, perhaps not too interactive with the user, but underneath it's doing the learn. And we will involve the community to kind of come and actually have ownership there as well. It can have ownership on the create side, it can have ownership on the learn side, and then underneath it, which is the starting point really, we're going for the consumer side, but really a tech side, this is the starting point, which is ASI train. So what that means is you build these machine learning models, and we're going to be building foundational models. So if you look at LLMs, LLM is a foundational model, but for language. But that's the beginning. We kind of, that's not, we haven't even kind of done anything. It's the tip of the iceberg really. Because to do anything, either research and science, which is discovery, I mean, you need to build foundational models for each and every vertical. And I've talked many times about different verticals and bringing value to those verticals. So this is so Train is a platform where you'll be able to train and actually participate financially, economically, to build these valuable machine learning models or AI models, which are going to run different verticals. So for example, robotics as a vertical, you will build a foundational model. Because if you think about LLMs, they are large language models, they're foundational models, which can be used in millions of ways. So the same applies to robotic models, physics models. How do you do physics computation. LLMs can only take you in terms of language, but to actually execute something, you have to go down and actually dig into the vertical. Same as protein folding model, like AlphaFold 3, which helps you. It's a foundational model to take molecules, to take proteins, fold them. All these models themselves is a huge, huge value. Each single model is billions of dollars of value, but they need to be trained. They need to be fine tuned. They need to provide inferences. So you need to build the whole stack to actually not just train them, but to provide a pipeline where people can actually take the inference, a pipeline where people can actually use it. And what do they use it for? For example, one of our foundational models we're going to be deploying on train is drug discovery models. What's the value if you can actually get an inference without training the model? So that's the train. So the stack at the moment looks like, and then you have the ASI compute, which is what we have added as kudos, and that's already there. So now that is the stack. And that stack, we will of course discuss this in more detail. You'll see plenty of documentation. But we've done the compute platform is already there. We will now release ASI Train so that you can see how we're going to build these machine learning models. These machine learning models, we already have Fetch already has a agent framework, agent platform, so you can actually spin them out in terms of actually building the application. So that's already happening. There's going to be plenty of tools which are going to come along, but that's a completely new conversation, a very detailed.
Yeah, with the tech stack and product and that, we'll take into a future conversation that you can elaborate on a lot deeper. But the sort of question that I have seen mentioned in something that I just remembered was with these kind of products that are coming out now is and obviously in relation to the tech stack, I would imagine this would be a bit of a hybrid. But is this something that are these products just reactively being created because of the mergers that you've managed to do, or is it more the mergers are proactive based on long-term goals of these product ideas that you've had? You're like, we need this, need that. What tech do we need? What do we need? What would make sense? So is it more proactive or reactive based on what you've got or what you need?
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to any of my interviews from 2 years ago or 5 years ago, and even just after DeepMind, I came out of DeepMind, you'll hear the same conversation. So that concept, the conversation hasn't changed. If you listen to Ben Goertzel, Singularity, same conversation. Just different alignments, because we are all looking at it from our point of view. This is why this alliance is so powerful. If you speak to Trent, I mean, his ideas, Ocean, he's got great ideas. They focused on data. They focused on something which they felt was the core of AI. So we are all coming at it from different angle. What is amazing is to bring all these thinking heads together and start building something. I mean, if you speak, and I'm sure there's plenty of videos from Kudos CEO Matt. He's talked about compute, how he's going to bring compute. Why does he need to bring compute? So all these ideas exist in their own way, but this is the power which I'm saying the merge brings. We now trying to build a coherent stack, which is a multiplier in terms of your consumer base, your customer base. It's a multiplier in how much supply you can build, and it's a multiplier how much value you can create. Because imagine, I mean, I'll give you an example. Mistral, right? Mistral was it's just a large language model trained hugely valuable, raised $1 billion at like 10 billion valuation. We're nowhere near these kind of valuations. But imagine having a stack where you have not just one large language model, you have foundational models, which each has a valuation of, the market which is going to use it has valuation of 200-300 billion. Where would you put the value of such a stack, which actually works, which you actually can use, which when people pay for a protein folding problem, they're going to pay thousands of dollars. They're not, because they don't have the resource to train another foundational model spending 10 million on it. But now make that available. How do you create these new e-commerce solutions, right? Who's going to build all that and use tens of millions of dollars to build it when you actually have this? So what you do is you pay for the utilization of such a stack to build applications, and that's the objective here.
And with the kind of merge with PAL not being approved by community and not happening, does any of that hinder any of your current product outlook or any of your kind of future ideas with issuing a roadmap and stuff like that? Is there anything hindered now?
Not necessarily, and I'll explain the reason why I said that. So as I said in the beginning, as I was saying to you, we looked at PAL. PAL, the main value they bring is the fact that they understood the market for Telegram users. So their biggest product is actually having bots in Telegram channels. And they did it really well because we were not focusing on the commercialization, we were focusing on building the back-end technology. So the reason why we wanted to kind of bring them in is to give them the better technology in the back-end, which obviously that wasn't their focus initially, but they felt that they needed if they want to keep up with the pace, because their pace of development is huge, right? You can build a bot today. It could be outmoded and useless tomorrow because there's 10 others. So really the idea was that because they already had captured that user base, we will give them more and more features to feed into that user base so that the user base doesn't start looking for other things. So user base stays with PAL. We get the user base and they get the technology, and then the whole cycle is complete because you kind of bringing the user using the technology which they already have. We give the backend, which improves the kind of reinforcement loop. So that was the benefit of it. What is now happening, what will happen is that we might still be able to sell them the technology. That's fine because they will charge the customer. They will pay us something to use our technology, and we will pay them something. Well, they will be the front end. We will be the back end. So we can still split the revenue, but the friction to actually get that moving is going to be a lot higher.
So you're saying that even though obviously the merging of PAL into ASI obviously will not happen, there's still a strong affinity and alignment between the two parties, and between the alliance and PAL. So there's probably future ways you'll see of us working with PAL.
Absolutely, they could be our customer, right? We could charge them. They could use the technology, and they can attach it to their bot. They can deploy that on Agentverse so that you can have different multi-channel communications. You can have cross-channel communications. So all those things can happen, which they don't happen right now, but they can using the technology in the backend, and that was one of the objectives. But so that we keep on top of it. So I mean, what happens to those agents, to those bots which are sitting in Telegram if they fail to bring new technology? Somebody else will come and take them. So for them, it was quite useful to actually be part of a much bigger back-end technology player who can keep churning out new technology to make them, stay relevant in the market. What happens if they can't build that much technology? Because their focus was not that. They have a small team. We have a much bigger team. We have a much bigger resource. We could actually spin out more and more technology to them. But in the short term, perhaps exactly, they stay, they become our customer, we become their partner, we kind of share the revenue, and that's it.
Discussing kind of about revenue and reactives and proactives and that, you mentioned earlier about earn and burn mechanism, and it's been, you mentioned it on the recent spaces. How does this kind of tie in with the long-term product roadmap? And also, is this something that you've just injected as a kind of clawback to get community incentive, happiness back up, community morale because of what's happened recently, or is it something that you already it was in place, existing, and it's something you were just looking to work towards?
So let me evidence my thinking in the sense that I mentioned to you what we said. We want revenue from various places. So we have the compute platform for revenue, we have the network for fees, we have on top of that the algorithms or machine learning foundational models, which I mean, I announced Train. Well, I didn't announce it, I hinted it to the community 3 weeks ago, way before PAL merger happened. Again, Train was to build these foundational machine learning models, which we're going to sell the inferences from. And then on top of that, we have the Agentverse, which is already kind of starting to have plenty of agents and starting to generate revenue. There's utility already there. Ocean has already got like 1,000+ nodes out there, so they're doing the revenues coming in. Kudos already has the revenue coming in. So all the revenue is coming in, and we wanted to scale it even more before we kind of fully announced the earn and burn. So the point is that the whole idea of translating revenue and the earnings of this whole alliance as an ASI alliance has to somehow be translated to the token holders. This is not a security token, so we can't do dividends. So doing dividends is not possible. So how do you do that? So what you do is you take a portion of your earnings, and you take that portion of the earnings and then you burn it. So that what that does is it creates a deflationary pressure on the token. So this is not something I've come up with like yesterday. This has been tried and tested, and it works. The problem you have is when you just go out and for no reason start burning the token, right? So what you do is you actually lay out the value first. You kind of merge these projects together, then you take the revenue, and then you start burning the tokens to distribute value back to the token holders. So that was always going to happen. Um, the the reason why it happened in the spaces is because somebody said, why don't you do the burn mechanism? Why are you not announcing a burn mechanism? So my point was, we were going to announce it in the following day or so. We might as well discuss it there and then so that people can even ask the question. So perhaps the sudden announcement was reactionary, but I felt it was the right time to announce it. But the mechanism has been right with us from the beginning of the merge, because you do the merge to create revenue streams, and the revenue streams kind of multiply, and the way to distribute that value is either by giving people rewards, which creates an inflationary pressure, or you do a token burn, buyback and burn, earn and burn, and that creates a deflationary pressure. So you actually want the token holders would prefer a deflationary pressure.
I think with the sort of reactive nature, like within the questioning, I think the reason that exists is because quite evidently the ASI Alliance does not have a public-facing roadmap at the moment for people to see, where they would see these things on. Why hasn't ASI released an official roadmap yet, and when can we expect to see one?
Again, I think perhaps this is a oversight from our side, which is we like to be a little bit more exact. I can put a line and I can give quarters and I can write 3 lines on top of it and say here's the roadmap. And you see, again, plenty of projects will do that, and everybody will be happy. The community will be happy. I'm telling you as it is, right? So we knew that's what we're going to build. We all knew, ASI Alliance members all know where we're going with this, because that's our first discussion when we started the whole merge process. How do you position it in the right way? How do you actually create these products which actually connect with each other properly? And what are the actual timelines we can deliver against? Is a time consuming process. we have we've kind of done it. We have been doing it. We are actually at a point where we will be releasing something, but I didn't want us to just do a knee jerk again in terms of, well, just because the community is slightly unhappy, we should just release something. We're going to do it, we're going to think it through, and we're going to release it. Expect a roadmap within the next 2 weeks. We've already given you all the things that we talked about. We talked about, we talked about compute, we talked about train, learn, we talked about create. All of those are the roadmap products which you're going to see. What the community wants to see is exactly when is it coming. Now we have to be realistic. We have to be aware, and I don't want us to overpromise, underdeliver. I would like us to, you know, deliver it on time. So for doing that, I think everybody in our team felt that we need to do up the project plans properly before we start announcing it to the market, and that's the reason why it has taken so long. It is going to be released very soon, as I said. I mean, you can, yeah, hold me to 2 weeks. That should be fine. So it should be coming.
We can catch back up in 2 weeks when and discuss a freshly released roadmap. Fingers crossed. So just touching on the roadmap. Obviously, the alliance has been around for majority of in discussion within the majority for the year and that, and obviously a roadmap would have been discussed and planned in that in the background anyway. But what kind of, are there any challenges that obviously the alliance has faced while in trying to align the roadmap across your initiatives, and obviously what opportunities have emerged from doing so, from aligning?
I think we're getting better at it. So imagine day one when there's three projects who've existed for 4 years, 5 years, coming together. They have their own way of working. They have their own products. You can't just bring them straight together. Although they are complementary products, you still have interfaces to deal with. You have the ability to connect from one to the other to deal with. And as we were saying, we had partnerships amongst each other in one way, shape, or form, but these are not very deep partnerships. So you still need to kind of say, okay, here's the core of this product. We need to take that core. How do we put it in a way that it kind of makes sense with the whole tech stack? So those were challenges, and I think we kind of become much better at them in terms of how we approach it. Teams were never a problem because we don't in the merge we don't actually take the teams on together. We do a very much independent kind of teams. We just talk project, we just talk technical deliveries, and we talk about the product itself. That's all we do. So who delivers it, how they deliver it, every team manages their own side. The revenue when it comes in also goes to the teams who built it. So that side is quite pretty straightforward, and the framework we put together is very clear, so that doesn't cause us any issues. There of course there will always be discussions, disagreements, agreements about what the product needs to look like. But what I've realized is once you have the full vision, you have the long-term blue sky vision, you have the medium-term vision, and you have the short-term kind of now vision, then you actually align it all together. It actually adds up quite well, because then you kind of, when you're doing short term now, you still think, okay, in a 12 months time, what do I need from it? So actually development process is, in my mind, very much better now in terms of designing, developing, putting it together. We did have that challenge initially, and I'm sure we'll have more challenges like that. But I think we're overcoming them by setting a framework which makes sense. But we do have some benefit because we're not like a combination of a DeFi project from metaverse and into AI and into something else. We are, and let's just throw in a meme coin in there as well. But we're not that. We're very focused on what we are. We're very focused on delivering AI based uh, tech stack, uh, applications, and we're very focused on kind of decentralized AGI at the highest end of it, which is the more the vision. So we know where we want to be. We know how we're going to get there. Of course, you're going to have slight adjustments in when you launch a product. Sometimes the product works, sometimes it doesn't work, but we are not relying on one product. We have an array of products, so which means we can do some tweaking, but revenue is going to start coming in, and it's already starting to come in. So we can see the traction is starting to build.
Well, just touch on the subject of obviously revenue coming in and the commercialization and capitalization on the work that we're doing. How does the alliance itself differentiate itself from large centralized entities doing the same, or emerging Web3 competitors aiming to do the same? And what unique value do we have to position to us, the ASI, in compared to the centralized and Web3 competitors?
So, well, let me kind of put the question in three different places. So, first one is, how are we competing with big companies? Well, that was one of the reasons, like centralized entities. One of the reasons why this merge kind of came about was that was the reason that they have. And as I was saying to you before, that when you have a company, the company goes off and it kind of builds it, like OpenAI. They had the compute, they bought the compute, they did this, they built the models, they had all the people, they employed all of that, and the application. So they built the whole thing. Now, if you try and do that with Web3, and you're trying to look at raising $10 billion, which is what they kind of had, you kind of most projects are not of that value, right? So you need something of substance which can actually not only just commit to such a big task, but also has market capitalization, the valuation, the understanding, the actual amount, the team. And building the team is not easy in this kind of space where you're not going to find people. Again, even in centralized entities, you're struggling. So what was a really natural way to doing it is that these projects which are running themselves, and they want to run their own spin outs. I mean, it's like the same in centralized. You have all these startups. You kind of bring them together and you align on the goal, and you deliver something which a centralized entity can do, but in a very decentralized manner. So that was the premise. That's, of course, that has worked. I mean, community might not feel that way because the token price hasn't appreciated for them. That will come, but the product itself, building that in, it's not a competition. It's a viable alternative. I always call it a viable alternative, because when you it's your choices. Either you're going to use Amazon or Google Cloud Service, right? It's your choice. You can actually provide a viable alternative, then you have a chance of doing something. The problem we have in Web3 space and crypto is there is no viable alternative, because you have these little tiny pockets of very kind of insular token communities which don't want to really, they just want the token price to go up, and that's about it. So to build that whole stack together and then actually provide that viable alternative is what we are aiming for. So there are challenges, and we saw one recently with the merger, right? It's a democratic system. People can say yes or no. You have to observe it, you have to obey it, and that's what we're doing. Makes it slightly more difficult. But then you have the positive sides, which is you are bringing these teams together who are motivated, they want to do it, they know what they're doing in that little piece. And if you let them go and do that, that accelerates the process. So it's quite an interesting dynamic there. Although we have challenges, we do think the smaller teams who are motivated to do exactly what they want to do, and if you align them with the vision, then they can deliver way better value. So that's kind of what puts us into the Web3. And then, of course, there's going to be competition in Web3, but we call it co-opetition, right? That's cooperative competition. So we don't. I think the market is so big. I don't think Web3 has anything to worry about, because we're like Biggest project is what, 10 billion? I mean, nothing. It's nothing. What is coming? What is one of these models on ASI train could be valued at 10 billion on its own. That's the kind of scale we're looking at. We're not even thinking at this point in the scale.
Are there any plans for future partnerships, collaborations, or dare I say it, merges that would further strengthen what the alliance can offer, but also to sort of just to accelerate your existing roadmap or plans?
Yeah, so I think once the market understands the dynamic and sees the value flow through in the merge, then we will still look to do more merge. I think for the minute, we've just said, okay, the market does not believe in it, market does not agree with it. So we're going to pause that. Partnerships are quite an interesting thing. We touched upon it before. You're building a Web3 space. What we all keep like to say is, oh no, the centralized entity, they're the baddies. We're going to do this decentralized. And then we get obsessed about forming partnerships with centralized entities. Now, it's an oxymoron. It's like, how would you get that, both sides? We get very happy if some partnership with a centralized entity materializes. But then in the same breath, we say we are decentralized, so we don't want control from anybody. So I think it's quite, yeah, I don't really think that makes too much sense. Some partnerships are valid and true as long as they're bringing some use case into the space, as long as they're bringing some consumer into the space. And that really is where our core focus needs to be. How do you bring utility to Web3? Because there is not that much of a utility. Our biggest utility today is meme coins. I mean, we have to be really serious with ourselves. Where is this going? I mean, science and technology, DeSci, all of that has got so much potential, and it fits in. AI fits in with this whole Web3 space. We need to make a concerted effort to bring those use cases.
With the kind of meme coins just touching on, obviously this is not ASI related. This is more position to your thoughts and feelings. Do you think, obviously with the amount of inflows going into meme coins, but then the amount of wealth that they're creating for people and that, do you see this as something long term, or do you see it tulip mania era, if you get the reference, kind of thing?
I think we have some diehard fans. I'm not saying, okay, let's just start from first principle. There is something which people want. It's a product. So I can't say anything negative about it. There is huge demand for a meme coin. So it's a product. So obviously it's okay. I mean, it is what it is. It's a product. And so that's how I see it. It's a market, which is a product. This is not ASI's product. This is not what I want to buy as a product. I mean, there are 10 cars, I choose one car against all the other 9. It's my choice, right? So it's the same with either buy a meme coin because you believe in meme coins because it's going to make you rich, or I don't know what other value it has. Maybe it does have some, you people smoke cigarettes, right? What value does it add? It just gives you that satisfaction. Maybe that's the value. I don't see it, but that doesn't mean I'm right. I'm just seeing it as a product, and it's
no, true. It's like, I suppose, why would you wear a Rolex as opposed to a Casio? And the reason is because of the way it makes you feel. That's the only reason, the way it makes you feel. And it's the same with this kind of stuff as well.
It's a huge market, right? So luxury goods, huge market. Preferences, huge market. So I mean, it's the same as NFTs. I mean, NFTs, do they still have value? Do they still have value? I don't know. Maybe they do. For somebody, they do.
Yes. Yeah, I suppose about individual, but I think anything that kind of puts Web3 sort of blockchain on the map to outside money coming in, I suppose is important. And then that's where we start to see runs and stuff like that. When you've got your cab driver or your barber talking to you about a meme coin or something, you're like, what the hell? Like the same way what we saw with NFTs. That's when you know that, okay, we're running now. This is we're going, sort of thing. So, which I don't think we're there just yet, but it's yeah, at some point it'll happen. I think, to be honest, Hermione, you've answered everything so detailed, and I could sit and listen to you, talk to you for hours. But we're sort of being very kind of conscious of your time. What I just want to kind of close with is, obviously there's so much demand from the community for, for chairman, C-level, devs, do something, what's happening, kind of thing. For us to help benefit ourselves as token holders and for the price of the token where we can all benefit, what do you think we can do, as a community? Obviously there's obvious ones about, don't FUD, just, push, pump, shield yourselves and all that, which is, it's hard work. But as sort of community members in that, what would be your advice? What would you advise we do to help?
Okay, so what would I do? I mean, everybody's different. Token holders are token holders who have spent money to buy the token. It's a utility token for some use, for speculation. There is no judgment here, right? So what would I do? I mean, and I tend to do that all the time. When there is FUD, it's my job. I jump in, I give clear and precise response to something. I'm not scared of answering your questions, because there is nothing which we're doing which we should not be doing. We should be doing it because we believe in it. So as a community, what my request is that please look at the information, look at what is actually being said, not by some individual FUDders, but more what we have said. If it's a proposal, it is a proposal. It is not a done deal. I mean, that's my request to the community. Please look at what has been said by official channels before you jump onto the FUD. And then, I mean, you can imagine, there are plenty of other tokens who want you to dump one thing to buy something else. That's what they're shilling you. I'm not going to shill you ASI. I'm not going to shill you FET. It is what it is. And I said, we're not a meme coin. We're not going to do a 1000x like a meme coin. We are building something which will over time accrue value. Maybe we're not, maybe we're not as fast as the value accrual in a meme coin, but trust me when I say we're building stuff, and building takes time. We have proven it again and again. Look at where FET started from: 6 cents, 3 cents, 2 cents. Look at where we are today. And that comes by building value. We're building the value for the right vertical. This vertical is here to stay. It's AI. It's only getting bigger. It's only getting started. We haven't even started seeing its impact in science, in building technology properly. The exploration, new technologies. This is all coming, and we need to bring it to Web3, because the ownership sharing of Web3 is really the way to go, in my belief. And that's what I'm going to say is you have to assess what this project does. It might not be the best project in terms of the 1000x that you're expecting in a bull run, but we were there in the bear market too. We've seen when the whole thing crashed, and we were still there, and we're still here.
Well, it's not only that. It's a case of, in 2 or 3 further bull runs, because as we know, everything's cyclical. Not just this bull run, but the next one after that in X amount of years, and the one after that. What's going to be here? Is it going to be? What would you put your money on? Would it be? Is FET still going to be here, or is it going to be dog wearing slippers or whatever coin pops up? Do you know what I mean? That's the kind of that's how I kind of look at things. But that's like what you said, look where kind of fetch has come from. You only have to look at the look at the chart over the last 15, 16 days to see. But people don't zoom, we always say, if in doubt, zoom out. A lot of people are still fixated on 24 hours or even 7 days and that. But you only have to come out just twice that amount. Just come out by 15, 16, and you can see, Fetch was at 110 to now we're sitting at 130 and that. So, we've seen up from there. But, sometimes people need to gather thoughts, and if in doubt, zoom out.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously can't comment too much on the price itself, but what I can tell you is what we're building is valuable. I can tell you that as a guarantee. It's what we have and what we're building is valuable for what's coming. And that once the applications start generating revenue, and they're already starting to, and it starts to flow in, it'll surprise you.
Yeah, I think it's a question where people say, "Oh, well, will it be here for the bull run?" I think it's a question of how many bull runs will it see through, and I think that's a more important question. That's when you kind of look at the alliance and all that. Yes, it's going to go through a few cycles. To be honest, it's going to be here for a while, sort of thing, which is good. That's so yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, Humayun, thank you so much for your time. And on the next one, we'll probably dive a lot more into the products, and hopefully we'll have a roadmap, which I'm still holding you to after quoting you. So
we'll make sure you have it.
We'll follow up with one then.
Yeah. Thank you, Greg.
No worries at all. Thank you ever so much.